Let's have a look at the 10 largest countries in the world by population right now. At number 10, we have Mexico. South of the US border, Mexico is one of the biggest countries in the world. The third largest country in the Americas, Mexico has a population of just under 128 million and a high birth rate with 18.3 births per thousand population compared to only 5.8 deaths per thousand population. It's a highly urban country. It has 55 major metropolitan areas where over half the population lives. The rural areas of the country are much more populated and tend to have a higher indigenous population, while Mexico grew rapidly during the 20th century. That has been somewhat reversed and the population seems relatively stable. But it's a young, skewing country that is seen as a rising power. And in some ways, its future will be defined by one city, that is Mexico City. It houses almost a sixth of the country's entire population, making it one of the largest capitals in terms of population percentage in the world. It's the fifth largest city in the world, and it's a busy place that serves as a hub of industry, culture, and retail. If you ask any American what the demographics of Mexico were, they might say it's full of Mexicans, but the country is very diverse. It's a melting pot of people descended from Spanish colonists as well as still strong indigenous population and many immigrants from the Caribbean and Latin and South American countries. And of course, many people are mixed and simply identify as mestizo, a term that describes people of mixed ancestry with a white European and indigenous background. The country is heavily Roman Catholic with 78% of population belonging to the faith. But things aren't all sunshine and rainbows south to the border. As the 13th largest country in the world by landmass, Mexico has one advantage. Many of the countries ahead of it don't. It has enough room for everyone. But many of its cities can be overcrowded and chaotic. It also has a serious problem with crime and cartel violence, as the recent governments have tried to get the criminal activity under control and arrest gang leaders. Despite this, it's a major tourist destination for Americans thanks to comparably low cost of living. But with the 16th highest GDP in the world, it's likely to keep growing. Now let's head a long way up the north. At number 9, we have Russia. With a population of 147 million people, Russia is one of the largest countries in the world in terms of population. The biggest country in the world in terms of landmass by a wide margin, it spans across 2 continents. But a large percentage of the country is the frozen territory of Siberia, which is very loosely occupied and has played home to the infamous prison camps known as gulags in the past. Its largest city is Moscow, only the 24th largest in the world with around a tenth of Russia's population. And hiding beneath Russia's massive population is a very disturbing fact. They have one of the worst birth-to-death rates in the world. Their birth rate is under 10 per thousand people, while their death rate is at 16.7 per thousand. In other words, Russia is shrinking. It has large Muslim minorities as well as residents from other countries around Europe. The country has fought several major civil wars, has border conflicts with many of its neighbors, and has shrunk significantly since its height during the Soviet era. Its immigrant population is the third largest in the world, over 11 million. Now let's get much smaller. At number 8, we have Bangladesh. A small country on the eastern border of India, Bangladesh is part of the former British Raj that was eventually partitioned into a Muslim country, similarly to Pakistan on the western side. Initially part of Pakistan, it eventually gained its independence in 1971. It's 99% Bengali, with over 90% of the population being Muslim and just under 8% being Hindu. It also has one of the highest birth rates in the world, with a whopping 17.71 birth rate per 1,000 people compared to only 5.54 deaths per 1,000. It has a population of just under 170 million people, but in terms of landmass, it's only the 92nd largest country in the world, being just a bit bigger than tiny Nepal nearby in the Himalayas. But can a country of this size really sustain a large population? Well, Bangladesh population growth isn't slowing down and it's quickly running out of space. One area where it might be able to find relief is its education efforts. It has produced a high number of immigrants who have come to United States, United Kingdom and other places to work in tech and other fields. Now let's head across the ocean for something completely different. At number 7, we have Brazil. Welcome to Brazil, the largest country in South America. In more ways than one, it's more than the double size of any other country in the continent. With the size that make it the 5th largest country in the world, it has a population of over 217 million people, which is more than half the continent's population. And its growth doesn't stop there. It has a GDP that puts it at 10th in the world. Not only is this the biggest in South America, but it has more than half the gross GDP of the continent. So, in many ways, South America is defined by Brazil, which makes it surprising that the massive country is a bit of an outlier in some ways. For one thing, it speaks Portuguese when most of the continent speaks Spanish. But that's not the only unique thing about the massive nation. It's one of the most urban countries in the world, with its largest city, Sao Paulo, having a population of over 21 million, making it the 4th largest city in the world. Two other cities, Rio de Janeiro and Belo Horizonte, also make it on the list of the top 100 largest cities in the world. But outside of its massive cities, Brazil is home to the Amazon rainforest, one of the world's most biodiverse regions and one of the most endangered. So what's it like living there now? Well, Brazil is a modern country with the relative high standards of living, although this varies drastically by where you live. Their birth rate is fairly standard for the developed world, with 13.96 births and 6.81 deaths per 1,000 people. Its 92.6% literacy rate is high and education system is considered strong. Its urban centers, poverty and crime are commonplace and the country is struggling to get gang activity under control. But its high tourism rate and rich national resources mean its economy is likely to keep growing, and its huge coastline means it will be a destination for beachgoers for years to come. Now let's head to Africa's only representative on the list. At number 6, we have Nigeria. We are in the tight quarters again, as Nigeria is one of the smallest countries on this list. Not nearly as small as Bangladesh, but is 31st place on the list. It's only just over 356,000 square miles, putting it between the much less populated Tanzania and Venezuela. But Nigeria is exploding in population, with a population of over 218 million people and one of the highest birth rates in the world. That is 34.19 births and 8.7 deaths per 1,000 people. And as the country's population and economy keep booming, it raises a question. Where are these people going to live? Well, not a surprise. Nigeria is a heavily urban nation, with its capital city of Lagos being one of the largest metropolitan areas in the world. It has over 13 million people, making it the second largest city in Africa. But another reason Nigeria's culture is so unique is that it's one of the most diverse nations around. Its 90% of the population is almost evenly split between Christians and Muslims, with the other 10% belonging to various indigenous religions. It has become a hub for immigration with millions moving in from China, India, and US. And there is a reason for that. Nigeria's economy is also one of the fastest growing in the world, with a current GDP ranking putting it in 31st position. This makes Nigeria the wealthiest country in Africa, putting it ahead of powerhouses Egypt and South Africa. A larger part of this is due to its growing strength in the tech and manufacturing sectors. Now let's head back to Asia. At number 5, we have Pakistan. With a population of 242 million, Pakistan is one of the largest Muslim countries in the world, with over 96% of the population subscribing to the faith. The rest are mainly Hindus and Christians, but they are living in a country even smaller than Nigeria. It ranks 33 on the list, switched between Venezuela and Namibia in size, and it's growing fast with 27.5 births and 7.2 deaths per thousand residents. At number 4, we have Indonesia. Indonesia is a collection of islands. It turns out these islands are some of the busiest in the world, housing a massive population of 270 million. It has lot of real estate on its 3 main islands, making it the 14th largest country in the world. Only one of its cities is among the largest in the world, Jakarta, coming it at the number 30 spot with a population of over 10 million. And it is still growing. Indonesia is one of the countries with the lowest birth rates on this list, with roughly 15.3 births and 6.75 deaths per thousand residents. It's a very diverse nation. With over 1300 ethnic groups, most of the native Indonesian. The Javanese are the largest group, making up close to half the population, but the country has a wide range of languages and culture. Indonesia's GDP is in 17th place overall, making it the 6th largest in Asia. It also has a strong education sector with compulsory education for children through 12th grade. This has resulted in a literacy rate of over 92%, one of the highest in Asia. Now it's time to talk about the big guns, starting with USA. At number 3, we have United States of America. Yes, despite being larger than life in so many ways, the United States isn't actually close to number 1 in any category of largest country. With a population of 331 million, it's solidly in 3rd place in numbers and its size matches. Whether it's the 3rd or 4th largest country in the world, in area depends on how you define China's territory. It's so close that disputed territories make the difference. That makes it one of the most spread out countries in the world. With one big exception, of course, a huge part of America's territory is its largest state, the northern Alaska. It's more than the twice size of other states. The United States has many large metro areas, including 8 in the top 80 cities, including New York, the 11th largest city in the world, with a population of over 18 million. But its massive territory means its population is spread out among other cities, suburbs, and rural areas pretty evenly. One of the things that makes the United States unique is that it has the most distinct state identities of any country, with all 50 states having their own distinct identities and laws only being vaguely unified at times. It's probably not a surprise that the United States has the top GDP in the world. It has one of the lower birth rates in the world, though, with 11 births and 10.4 deaths per thousand people. It's a diverse nation with the majority of its residents being white but having significant percentages of Black, Latino, and Asian residents. Christianity is its primary religion, but significant minority populations of Jews, Muslims, Hindus, and other faiths are present. And a growing percentage lists religion as none. While it doesn't have an official language, English dominates, with Spanish becoming an increasingly big fixture in the country. Its literacy rate is around 99%, but only 79% of those are classified as having modern or high literacy. Now the next two countries, which are much bigger than the USA. At number 2, we have India. Not only India have a larger population than the United States, but it almost quadruples it with a population of a massive 1.2 billion people. This makes it the close runner-up for the most populous country in the world, and it's expected to climb to number 1 within the next 2 years, most probably by 2023 itself. This is partially due to the high birth rate, although not one of the world's highest. It's at around 16.42 births and 9.45 deaths per thousand people, and it has a lot of room to accommodate for all of those new people. India is a very large country, coming in at 7th place overall between Australia and Argentina. As the second largest country in Asia, it's the powerhouse in more ways than one. Its influence is only growing. In the past, India would have been even larger in territory. Today, it's primarily a Hindu country, although it does have a large group of religious minorities. 14% of its population is Muslim, largely made up of the descendants of those who chose not to leave during the partition. It also has small Christian, Sikh, and Buddhist minorities. Hindi is the most commonly spoken language, with almost half the population speaking it. India has some massive city centers, including 9 cities in the top 80, and second largest city center in the world in Delhi, which houses over 28 million people. India has a thriving tech and manufacturing sector and has risen to have the 5th largest GDP in the world. Other companies commonly outsource their work to India as well, and that's helped India having a literacy rate of 74%. Not one of the highest in the world, but overall strong. India continues to be seen as one of the fastest growing countries in the world, and many predict a bright future for the nation and its people. But for the country in first place, the future is a bit more cloudy. At number 1, we have China. The largest country in the world, with a population of 1.4 billion people, just under 20% of global population. It's not pressed for space, either being 3rd or 4th largest country in the world in terms of space. It's fairly homogeneous in terms of ethnicity, with 91% of population being Han Chinese. In terms of religion, this picture is mixed. China's communist government heavily discouraged religions for decades. Much of its larger population lives in major cities, with the largest being in Shanghai, with a population of over 25 million people. These are glitzy, modern metropolises with a thriving tourist scene, but far away you can find farmlands and other rural communities. But that hasn't stopped China from becoming a global powerhouse. They are the second highest country in the world in terms of GDP, being the only country to even approach the dominance of the US. But under the surface, a lot of trouble is brewing. For decades, China has a one-child policy that has strictly enforced to control its population. And it worked a little too well. China's population declined and many parents tried to get a boy as their one child, leading to a shortage of women. The policy was eventually reversed, but China still has low birth rate, only 7.52 births compared to the 7.18 deaths per thousand people. That has led many to worry about a population bust, but that hasn't stopped China from taking a bigger place on the global stage, both in terms of their economic influence and their aggressive foreign policy moves.